I started my career with the film Premratandhanpayo. It is Suresh Bajatia's magnum opus, if any one of you has seen. Architecture and cinema, they sort of go hand in hand. I would say cool or like interesting example that I would like to give is from this movie Stree that I did. By the way, just for you to know, all these books that you see, they're all, fake. I mean, by fake, I mean they're not even books. It's just cardboard or thermocol. Every set design is production design, but every production design is not set design because the whole visual look of the project depends on your, creative mindset, how creative you are. Like there are proper sketches to explain what exactly is happening in every scene. Reason why this is done is for you as an audience to believe that okay, this is the era that we are in. You'll see a matchbox and you'll see the branding on the matchbox and you'll know, okay, this particular advertisement was there in 1980s. I mean, our parents would relate to it, the generation watching. And if suddenly, it's so easy for us as audience to interpret like, okay, we are in the present era right now, because obviously the entire look of the set, the entire what kind of decor we are doing, what kind of colors we are using, what kind of elements are there. Everything is corresponding to which year we are in. Colors will also obviously depict the emotion of the film. These drawings sort of get converted into magnificent sets like these.
Further, I would like to welcome Akshita for an interesting workshop on spatial storytelling, the art of set design. She will guide us through the collaborative nature of design and storytelling. This workshop will help you explore various ways to build immersive narrative design set designs. Akshita Hans, founder of Story of Spaces, is a production designer, art director, and interior stylist based in India. The firm is a versatile design firm that specializes in three key areas: production and set design, interior design and styling, and space design. She started working in films in 2015 and has over 8 years of experience as a production designer and art director, having worked with eminent directors such as Shimit Amin, Ashim Ahluwalia, Dibakar Banerjee, Shakun Batra, and Bharat Sikka. She believes that spatial storytelling is the silent narrative of set design, where every corner, color, and texture speaks the unsaid, shaping not just the scene, but the soul of the story. We are so glad to have you with us, Akshita, on this workshop, and we really can't wait to hear your presentation.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible. So you can present your screen.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Today we will be starting on, we'll be talking about spatial storytelling. And I, in particular, will be discussing the art of set design because that's what I have been uh, working on for the last, I think, almost a decade now. So, little something about myself. Gopika has already introduced me, but just to add on to that, I finished my architecture from University School of Architecture and Planning, which is in Delhi. And after studying architecture, I just while studying, I was always intrigued by the idea of temporary spaces, and I was always very, very fascinated by the concept of movies and the narratives and everything. And so I just decided that this is something that I would definitely want to explore, and I'll be talking more about my journey further. But that's how it all began. Like architecture is, I would say, I give my entire my journey, like I give due credit to my studies that I did back in college, because that's what shaped who I am today. And that's also something that led me to find my own firm, which is Story of Spaces. And it's all about the fact that every space has a story, and we are the storytellers. So, moving on, these are the movies that I worked on. I started my career with the film Premratandhanpayo. It is Suresh Bajatia's magnum opus, if any one of you has seen. Then I did a couple of other movies in Bombay, and then I also was the art director for the movie Stree. which was the first three. And yeah, so these are some of the movies that I did. And of course, apart from that, there are several other commercials or advertisements that I was a part of. So now, starting with how exactly this happened, the whole concept of set design, like how exactly I entered this field. So if you are aware in architecture, I'm sure a lot of you know that already, but in the fourth year in our college we're supposed to write a dissertation. So for my dissertation, as I said, I was always intrigued by the idea of cinema and films and stories. So I chose the topic a parallel between cinema and architecture. And on the right, you will see this is my dissertation. If any one of you is actually interested in reading, I can share the link after this workshop. And it's there online, so you can have a look. But what I'm trying to say is that I chose the topic a parallel between cinema and architecture because I always thought that architecture and cinema, they sort of go hand in hand. I did various case studies to prove the point, and I also feel the narrative and space that we study in architecture is very, very, I would say, correlated to what we study, what we show in movies. So, and of course, directors and architects are also very, very similar to each other. So, yeah, so this dissertation is about that. Now, while writing this dissertation, I was actually very, very fascinated that, okay, this concept of set design and temporary spaces and narrative in cinema is very, very interesting. And that's how I thought that, okay, this is something that I really want to explore. And hence, started my journey of production design or set design. So you'll hear the word production design a lot because, to be honest, set design, uh, every set design is production design, but every production design is not set design. And I move forward, you will understand the difference between the two. But just to give you a fair idea, production design is, I would say, everything that you see on screen, So apart from the costume that an actor is wearing, or the makeup or the hair, everything else on the screen is production design. So just to explain that further, there's a small video that I would like to show you. And I think that would pretty much sum it up what production design is. I'll just play it, and if Gopika, you can just confirm that if the audio and
Yes,
it's
clear.
fine.
Yes,
Okay, I'll play it.
yes, sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
The audio is not
That's okay. It's just music.
okay then.
So from this video, what I would like to, like what the point that I was making earlier, that everything that you see on screen. So let's say if we talk about this very image, from the walls to the lighting, to the sofa, to the table, to the chair she's sitting on, to the flowers, to even the cup she's holding, everything is production design. So people usually get confused when they think of set design. They are, mostly thinking that, okay, you just create the backdrop, you create just the walls. But that's not true. That is just a very small chunk of, or a very small part of production design, as I said earlier. So yes, so the walls and the backdrop is just a small part of it. Everything else comprises of production design, and that's what we're going to be talking about, because storytelling is incomplete without all these elements. Like if I will just remove these flowers or this cup or this plate, the scene is not complete. I cannot just make the walls and add moldings and paint and call it set design. Like I have to do everything else for it to give that entire context and the whole spatial context. Okay, now moving on, what is a production designer in short? So basically, the production designer is a person who decides the visual look of the film, and they translate the script into visual metaphors. They create the color palette, they create the architectural details, the they are also involved in selecting locations, designing and decorating the sets. They coordinate costume as well, makeup and hairstyle, everything basically we just put together because we have to work as a team with all the other people. So that is what the job of a production designer is, and we are constantly involved with all the other I would say people in the film. So let's say the director. So we are obviously constantly discussing the creatives of the film with the director. We are also involved with the director of photography. He or she is the person who shoots the film, so cinematographer or DOP. Then we are obviously in touch with the producer for the budgets, and of course the costume, hair, and makeup. You might wonder why are we involved with them, because obviously if I'm designing a set which has a very monotone color palette, I would want the costume to also sort of, blend in, or sort of like it should not stand out or pop out and change the whole palette of the film. So that's how we are involved with the costumes. And then in the production design category, we have a lot of people under us. Like production designer is the main person, like an architect. And then we have people like set decorator who have these jobs like they interpret the set board. Like if I've designed a board, I've designed a docket, so the set decorator will interpret that in make details out of it. Then they do the finishing, they do the detailing, they do all of that. And then again, within the set decorator, there are various other people. Similarly, there's an art director, more like how we have a contractor. So we have an art director who further has other people in his team, and that is how together we are able to make a film or a set. So so talking about what makes a good production designer, so similar to any other field which is creative and requires a lot of visualization skills, production design, I also feel, is something where you definitely need a very high degree of creativity, because the whole visual look of the project depends on your creative mindset, how creative you are. Then secondly, the visualization skills. We need to imagine the space from scratch. The director might not be able to imagine what he has in his mind, but you have to sort of put it into a sketch or an idea. Then you need to have fabulous communication skills, because that's how you will be able to communicate exactly what you have planned or designed. And then definitely, if you have a prior design degree, you have studied architecture or interior design or any sort of space design, that definitely gives you an edge over others. So yeah, these are the things that makes what makes a good production designer. Now, if I talk about production design, like now, what is it like? How, if we are talking about the art of set design. So if I have to take you through the whole process of production design step by step, this is how it goes. So the first thing that happens is we receive the script. Now, any person who has approached us for the project, be it the director, the producer, or anybody from the film, they will share the script with us. We will read the script. That's the first thing that you do. And then after reading the script, we end up doing just like a script breakdown. I'll talk about all these things in detail moving further. But yeah, so when we break down the script, after that, we end up doing a lot of research and references. It could be through books, it could be through the internet. And after the research, we end up doing a location recce. So wherever the film is planned to be shot, we end up doing the recce there. And after doing the location recce, we make like an art docket, which is more like a Bible, which has everything, the design, the 3D, all of that. And after the docket, after the director and everybody's on the same page, we end up doing the budgeting based on the docket. So the docket obviously has various other parts to it, where we form a color palette, we create a mood board. There is a whole treatment with designs, which is basically all the other extra information, what goes where, all of that. And then once the budgeting of the set is done, we end up sourcing the props, whatever props that are to be used in the shoot. And once the props are sourced, we obviously make the set, which is the setting up or the construction of set. And once the set is done, everything is done, the lighting is done, the shoot starts. And once the shoot is over, we also end up dismantling the whole set. Now, this is pretty much what production design is. just to give you an idea of how it sort of relates with, let's say, architecture or any other, even interior design for that matter. So this is a small parallel that I have drawn, and I feel that will give you more clarity. So, like I said, we do script reading that is similar to the client or the project brief that we receive for any project. Secondly, when we talk about script breakdown, that is basically the architect's notes that you make. Like after getting the project brief, you end up scribbling exactly what the project is about and everything. Then, like we have a location recce, there are site visits in architecture. The docket that we make, the art docket, is basically similar to the final design, which has all the drawings, 3D, that entire file that we make, which is the site file. Then the art budget that we make is obviously similar to the bill of quantities that we make before any project is finalized. And how we do the prop sourcing in architecture, we do the material procurement, whatever needs to be sourced in terms of elements and, if there are bathroom fittings, etc., lights, everything. And like we do setting up, that's similar to the construction on site. We have a shoot day, obviously, which is the entire shooting process of the film or the ad or whatever. And I would say it's similar to the site photography that we do, and even the videos these days. And the one thing which does not have any parallel, I would say, to architecture is, of course, dismantle. There is no such thing, fortunately, in architecture or interior design. But that's one thing that we do in set design is once the shoot is over, the entire set is back to nothing. Okay, now going point by point, we'll start with script reading, and this is an example of a script from one of my movies, which is Stree. So this is how we receive the script. It talks about if the scene is in day or night. There is a whole conversation between characters. Then there are things like this particular scene. If I'm talking about, there is a whole book that is in talks, and this character is talking on a micro like a proper speaker phone, and there are people around. So this is how you get the script. And I'll just to give you an example. Yeah, so this is how the script gets translated into a film. And then sometimes, with the script, we also get these kind of storyboards. Now, what is a storyboard? Storyboard is essentially a script, but which has more graphical, like there are proper sketches to explain what exactly is happening in every scene. So, like, let's say this is the first scene. Now, the script would just have this text, but this storyboard has a proper sketch which shows you, okay, this is how the film opens, and the character is sitting on the sofa with her laptop, and she's working in the living room. So you get a pretty much the idea of what kind of shot it will be. Are we seeing the entire room? Are we seeing her close up? So storyboard helps you with that kind of information. And then the next shot is the focus, like a close up on her glasses, her expressions. Then the next shot is there's a cup of hot coffee on the side table. Then she's talking to her husband, they are chit chatting, the husband's eating something, and he's saying, okay, Google, play something nice. And then there's a shot of the speaker. So in short, this is what a storyboard is, and it helps you understand the narrative. It helps you like, it couldn't be more clear than this, because this is something that any layman would also understand. If you give the storyboard to let's say someone from costumes, they understand it. Someone from art, they get it. Even lighting, whatever like department there is, because everybody understands sketches, and this gives an idea of what kind of ad or what kind of film it would be, because this pretty much is the entire film in sketches. Now, just to show you how the storyboards gets converted into an actual ad, this is the ad. This was for Xiaomi, and it Yeah. So this is how the storyboard gets converted into a proper film, be it an ad or a film. But yes, the storyboard definitely helps in understanding the whole film or the idea. Now, when we receive the script or the storyboard, like the second step is the breakdown. As I said, that we end up making like proper notes. So after the script, we sort of divide the entire script into, let's say, the scene, what the scene is about, and if it's a day or night scene, then where is the location. Then again, what kind of setup there is, if it's a birthday party setup, if it's a chawl setup, if it's a room setup, and then again, what are the props that are needed for every setup. So this is a detailed breakdown, and of course, we end up changing things, we end up adding things all the time. So this is the kind of script breakdown that we make. After the script breakdown, the second thing that we do is, of course, going to the location. So if this is the location that we go to on set, on location itself, we end up making like a rough sketch of what our idea is about. So let's say this shoot was for Ganpati. So they wanted to do like a full Ganpati thing around this tree. So this is the kind of sketch that I worked out on location, and this is how we are seeing the whole location. We are understanding which tree we're going to be working around, and yeah, so this is how we make a concept sketch on site. Then the next step is making of an art docket. Now, for the same film Daddy that I was talking about, the research and references that are involved is insane. So, first, of course, we make a full list of what kind of props we need. Now, this particular film that I'm talking about was set up in, like it's not something that is the present era. Uh, it started from 1960s and until 2010. There were different eras in the film. So all the props that you see in this film were, they had to be of the particular era. So there was in extensive research involved of what kind of advertisements were there at that time, what kind of branding was there, and then we had to, find those things, the things that we were not able to find, we created them. So that is the kind of extensive research and reference, that goes behind any film or any particular project that we work on. And the reason why this is done is for you as an audience to believe that, okay, this is the era that we are in. You'll see a matchbox and you'll see the branding on the matchbox, and you'll know, okay, this particular advertisement was there in 1980s. I mean, our parents would relate to it, the generation watching. And if suddenly, it's so easy for us as audience to interpret like, okay, we are in the present era right now, because obviously the entire look of the set, the entire what kind of decor we are doing, what kind of colors we are using, what kind of elements are there, everything is corresponding to which year we are in. So like, in this particular year, we are in 1977 or 79, and then these are the elements that you see in this particular year, but these elements might not be there in the current year. So hence the research and references are very, very important for any particular film. Now, the second thing after the research and references is done, which is very important, I think, for any film, is forming a color palette. Because I feel a color palette can make or break the film. Because I just feel that any project, and I would not just say films, even if we are doing any space design, the kind of colors that you use in a space, and depending upon a client in an actual space, and depending upon the project, like if the director has a particular, or the genre of the film, or whatever it is, the color palette, I think, plays a very, very important role. And in film especially, the colors are very different from the colors that we see in real life. So let's say if I'm designing as an architect or as an interior designer, I'm doing a space and I want to play with gray and yellow. That's something that I just enjoy, or like I want to have gray and yellow in my space. But if I'm doing that in film, I might not be using a color yellow in something which is very, very, let's say it's talking a lot about, there's a lot of blood, and there's a death scene or whatever, because yellow in film is a very happy color. As you can see, this Project's Wheel of Emotions. Yellow expresses a lot of joy, ecstasy, serenity. And if I want to show anger and rage, I would rather stick to the tones of red. Similarly, if I have to present grief, I'll go with shades of blue. And if I have to express fear and terror, I'll go with green. So, these are the colors, and that's how every scene comes out exactly with the emotions that you are going through as an audience, because these colors depict those emotions. So, for an example, I'll show you the scene from Harry Potter. Now, the scene is a lot about grief. Harry's mother has died. There's a lot of crying involved. The scene is very desaturated, if you see. So the colors will also obviously depict the emotion of the film. If there was a randomly a red or an orange in this film, you'd be like, okay, what is going on? You'll not understand that. But because the tones are very, very muted and very, very, dull, and I would say extremely dark, that's what depicts the scene. So this is one example. Now, after the color palette, the second step, which is again very, very important in set design, is creating a mood board. Now, how is this mood board different from the kind of mood board we create in, let's say, any space design? Is we do a lot of, as I said, the research and references are there. So the mood board also involves pictures from that kind of research. So it could have, let's say, this is an example of a physical mood board of the movie Road. So they did a lot of referencing, because there were melas involved, there were roads involved, there were like these small pit stops involved. So there's a lot of live pictures of such things. And then, of course, if there's any movie with a similar theme, they do a lot of referencing from that kind of movies also. Then there's a color palette that goes in the mood board, kind of textures that we are using. So let's say this fabric is for costumes. Then generally the whole tone of the film is what goes on in a mood board. So this is an example of a physical mood board. And then there are also ways to do a digital mood board. So this is, let's say, for this film called The Man Who Sold the Eiffel Tower. And the referencing is, let's say, there's a location reference, there's a vibe of what kind of costume, what kind of vehicle, what kind of lighting, then what kind of art, because again, this is not something which is the present era. So this is also one way to put together a mood board. So now this is very, very important, because this sets the tone of the film. The director understands, okay, what is the production designer thinking when they are thinking about that particular scene, and the mood board sort of brings in all the elements together. One example of a mood board that we made for Daddy is this. So this also had the 3D, it had references, it had color palettes, it had different, elements that we are going to be using for the film. And it was extremely detailed, with different areas and spaces that we are also going to be showing in the film. This film had a lot of chawl in it. So if you see, the references are not particularly the chawls of India, but like any place in the world where they have this kind of living. And that is what translated in the movie. And because of this extensive detailing that went into the storytelling, we also won a national award for production design, because as again, for audience, it is very, very important to, you need to transport or teleport, I would say, the audience to that particular you know era or the scene where you're shooting this in. Now, after the docket comes in the budgeting. So this is again an example of the art budget that we created for a TV commercial. Now, TV commercials obviously have fairly smaller budgets as compared to movies, but of course, in that also there is a lot of stuff that goes on. So from setups to particular props to, as simple as if we are creating like a full market. So what is the cost per cart? How many number of carts? That's the kind of costing we have to account for. And then we also have to account for the crew wages, the team costing, the transportation, rentals, everything. A lot of the stuff that we use on shoot is not purchased, it's rental. So we have to consider the rental amount as well. So this is how we create a budget. Moving on, the next thing, as I said, after the budget is created, we end up sourcing of props. Now, the props that you see in the films can be sourced from two places. One is through the markets directly. So, we sometimes buy things from the markets directly. And sometimes we also have these designated prop shops, which have a lot of stuff in them, and you can just rent it out. So this particular picture that you see is a prop shop where you just pick things for your film, and once you're done with the shoot, you return it, and of course you pay the rental. So that's how the props are sourced. Moving on, how we get onto the construction and the dressing of a set. So if I have to talk about the construction, this is an example of the movie Premratandhanpayo. We end up making drawings as well in set design. Of course, they're not as detailed as our architectural drawings, but yes, these are like proper to scale drawings. And then these drawings sort of get converted into magnificent sets like these. Now, if you see this image on the right, it could just be a facade. There could be nothing inside. Because in the end, in the movie, this is what you see. You light it up and you see the front facade, and everything. And behind it could just be like a normal, like a square or rectangular room. That's about it. So yeah, so that's about how the drawings get translated. Now, of course, there are times when we also make basic 3Ds just to understand the size of the set. Again, the 3D that we do, depending upon the project, it could be as simple as something like this, where you just paint the walls with colors and elements, and just to show you how this translates into an actual set. So this is for this project, Hazurila Jewelers, and we did this set in Bombay. And every set had a different theme with it. There was a fireplace that we created, there were moldings, and the whole theme was very opulent, very vintage. So hence the molding. But this also gives, again, a very good idea for, let's say, in this case, a photographer, that, they know already through the 3D that, okay, these are the 3 sets, this is how big the set will be, these are the colors of the set. So, of course, the medium could be anything. It could be a drawing, it could be a 3D, it could just be a presentation. But the main idea is for everyone on set to understand exactly what is the like how are we telling the story. So, one very, I would say, cool or like interesting example that I would like to give is from this movie Stree that I did. Now, if you remember, there were these murtis. There was this whole sequence where they tell the story of the protagonist, or like the Stree in picture, and like the entire story is through these murtis. All right. Now, of course, you cannot call a real carve, like a person who carves on stone and create this entire gufa in stone, and it's not even practical to do the entire thing post, like in computer graphics or VFX. So we had to create these murtis out of thermocol. So because thermocol artists is still that you can manage in the given time, so we obviously did a lot of references. So if you see this picture, we had some pictures from the internet, which we then converted into this thermocol, blocks. We carved the things out, and then with the help of a hot gun, we sort of carved these murtis properly. And then this picture on the right is from the location where we set up this entire thing, so it looks like it's a part of a cave. We also then ended up doing putty and POP on top of this thermocol, just to make blend it with the current, like let's say if you're shooting in this old fort, it has to look like it's a part of that. And after doing the putty and paint and everything, we did a lot of, aging, texturing. Even these kind of roots coming out from the trees, those were created with ropes and thermocol. So everything that you saw just now, I mean, when you see the film, you would never be able to guess that all of this is made in thermocol, because we have to give the look of stone and the entire texture that it is done ages ago, and this is what is left of it. These are the ruins, and that is the beauty of set design, I would say, or production design, that you have to just make the audience believe anything that you are making. So if I want, I can make this look like, okay, it's freshly done, just now someone carved it. If I want, I can make it look like it's 100 years, it's done 100 years ago. So with your art, with everything, all the tools that you have, you just have to make sure you're convincing your audience. So that was about the murtis. Now, again, from the same film Stree, if you remember, there was this whole sequence of this character Pankaj Tripathi, Rudra, in the movie. So he has a small bookstore which is called Rudra Pustak Bhandar, Now, when you see the movie, you never obviously notice things like these, of course, because you're just seeing the character and the actors talking. But I'll tell you how it is so important. I don't know if people watching this workshop right now, they have seen this film Stree 2, which is the second part of the film. Now, a simple thing that I just, thought on set that, okay, let's create this character, like make this character more convincing. So there was this whole sequence about this actor who's in love with this girl called Shama and all of that. And then the first movie, they never talk about Shama. They never show her. They never, even have anything of her. But then just to build this character, if you see this particular image, there's this small earring that I hung on the table lamp. And funnily enough, this is my earring, which I just, randomly hung that, okay, this could be interesting. Maybe he's just kept it as a souvenir and all of that. And there are like interesting props, like, because he's such a colorful character, we had this ink pot and this, peacock feather. And we are like, okay, maybe he writes with the peacock feather, but I don't know if it's visible in this photo. Instead of just writing from the peacock feather, which was like a very ancient thing to do, we added like a ballpen tip below the feather. So that's the kind of quirky character that he is. Rudra is that, and then he has these random things on the table. So coming back to this Jhumka, this actually became such a significant thing in the second film, where he actually takes this Jhumka and goes to the character and gives it to her. And he's like, I still remember you. So things like this really help in character building. Nobody would remember this from the first film, but it is what it is. And if you see all of this typewriter, this lamp, like this he anyway carries in the film, the books, the whole vibe, it all adds up to building the personality of any actor, any character, and hence the set dressing is so important. We cannot just stop at building the set and the walls. We have to do this kind of detailing, this kind of aging. If you see the table has a particular texture, the books have dust on it. So that speaks about the scene. So again, showing you how it reflected in the film. By the way, just for you to know, all these books that you see, they're all, fake. I mean, by fake, I mean they're not even books. It's just cardboard or thermocol. It has this kind of print on top of it because, again, we have to see the budget also. We cannot source like tons of books just for one small scene. So we have to make. So this is the entire set dressing that I'm talking about. So if you see all these props that this random shuttlecock, and there's this toy, this feather that I was talking about, the jhumka, there is a random paperweight, this glass thing, there's a clock. So all these things together, this is what Rudra is about. So random, so quirky, so like unique, and that is what is again very very important in production design. You need to build a character. You cannot just keep, okay, I'll just keep a random lamp, I'll keep a pen stand, I'll have some pens in it, and that is the logical set dressing for a table with a bookshop. But that's how you break away from everything logical or things that are normal. So you see, these are all the books that are set up and everything, and it gives a very cozy and a very small this vibe that, okay, it's in the village. Okay, moving on. Now comes the main part. After the set is done, construction is done, we end up shooting. And of course, shooting is very, very important because like how we had imagined the set. So like this is again from movie Daddy that I did. On the left, you'll see the 3D that we made of the chawl, and it was a very detailed 3D with details of the railing as well, and what kind of pillars. And again, this entire chawl was constructed, and to an extent that it should take the weight of the cast. It's not just something that, okay, we are just showing this on camera. It's a proper working set, as we call it. The windows open, the doors open, the people are sitting and jumping and running and doing all sorts of activities. So if you see on the left is the 3D, and if you see on the right, this is how this entire thing translated into an actual set. So these are the images from the movie. So if you see this staircase, this is how it looked on camera. If you see this balcony, this is how it looked like. This was the Karen balcony. Clothes hung. There's a random, bottle container with a plant in it. Then again, what kind of lighting, what kind of greens, all of that together makes this come to life. Then again, if you see this part of the chawl, there was a full Ganpati setup that we did here. So again, lights, Ganpati. Like you need to make the audience believe that it's a real chawl. They can at any point not find out that okay, this is a set, because then you lose the like the convincing power or whatever. Like if for once an audience is able to point out that okay, this is not real for sure, they've definitely created this as a set, that means your job of a production designer has you've not done a great job. And on the other hand, when I remember when my parents were watching this movie, of course they knew I was a part of it, but generally they could not believe it that all this is constructed and it's not an actual chawl in Bombay. They kept asking me, "Acha, kuch part to aapne real chawl mein kiya hoga." So that's, I think, the entire beauty of production design. And I would like to just end this workshop by saying that definitely a good set must act, because if your set will not act, then the actors will not be able to act, the director will not be able to direct, because I think it is such an important and it's such a I would say backbone of any project, any film that you do, and everything goes around a good set. Like it needs to have all the elements, it needs to give that comfort to the cast, and that's what it is. Now we can open the workshop for everyone if they're, this is one such set that I am deeply in love with, and you can answer what do you think this set is of and which movie or show this set belongs to. And yes, I think there's some career opportunities in the field which I can discuss in detail if anyone is interested on that. And these are my credentials if anyone wants to get in touch with me after this workshop. So that's my phone number and that's my Instagram handle and this is my email ID. You can take a screenshot. And yes, now I think we have a little time for questions. So
thank you so much for this lovely session, because we were all looking forward to this session on set design, and it was
thank you.
like you just summed up the whole behind the stage process of film production, and how product design and production design and set design are so like interchangeably used, but they are completely different. And how it
Yeah.
was fascinating to see how those sketches and how those small details in your projects were that you had put all the effort that you put backstage was coming to life in the film. It must have been a very proud moment for you, probably.
It's more than proud. I think it's a very it's an experience that you can't really
Yes,
put in words when you see your work on the big
yes,
screen, or even if it's on a smaller screen when you put in, because the kind of process that is, and it's so taxing, it involves so much hard work and you don't understand it at that time. Like for a 10-second scene we prep for months. And then when it comes on the big screen and you're like, okay, this is looking amazing, that's when it's a sense of an achievement. So yeah.
yes, especially the details like the thermocol murti and the books that you had shown on Stree. So that was very interesting. Like that's something which when you're watching the movie, you don't actually realize. You might think it's real. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
so that's it. Thank you so much for this really interesting session. So we totally enjoyed your session. I hope you had a great time as well.
I had a great time. Thank you so much, IIDA, for having me, and looking forward to more such workshops and talks
Definitely.
in future.
Yes.
And anyone, as I said, who would like to connect with me personally over this, or generally if they want to know, I anyway keep talking a lot about set design because I'm very passionate about this particular field. So yes, you can get in touch with me
Yes.
later.
Yes. It does reflect in your workshop as well about your passion in set
Thank you
design.
so much. Thank you. It was my
Thank
pleasure.
you so much. Okay,
All right.
bye.
Bye.